For you guys may have heard a little memo right now that said there will be a recording in progress. We are going to be recording this session. So for any of you that have to get up and leave in the middle of it, or any of you that just want to come back and visit all the fun, you can go ahead and do so with the link that our fabulous outreach person will be sending out to you. For those of you joining us for the very first time, welcome. Thank you for your interest. This is a series we have dubbed Careers in Animal Welfare, where we explore unconventional or unheard of careers that work with animals. Some people want to be vets, some people want to be animal matchmakers. Clue about what's happening later on today. But to get you guys a little bit more excited about what's happening in the series, we actually are going to be talking to a couple of different people this session. So upcoming after today is going to be October 22nd, and we are going to be talking to a very cool person whose career is being a beehive tender and doing all the amazing things with the bees. Save the bees, guys. They will save the earth. After that, we are going to be talking to somebody whose name is Mr. Tuttle, and he is a forest ranger. That is actually really, really cool, and I'm super excited about it. Smokey the Bear vibes. And to cap off everything, we actually going to be talking to a senior groomer that works with our shelter. She gets to come in and has a very special skill set about working with shelter animals who may have never had a cut or a groom before, and she has to do her super awesome grooming vibes with them. So those are some people that we will be talking to on our upcoming series. I did also want to let you guys know that our educational programming at Pasadena Humane is going to be going fully live coming 2022. So all of our programming will be in person. This is going to be one of our last events that is going to be virtual. So we will be keeping the career series virtual. You'll still be able to sign on for everywhere you want from the comfort of your own couches. But our workshops, our scouts workshops, all of our other fun stuff will be in person, and we will be bringing back our critter camp, which is going to be themed in the upcoming year. And we will also be having Do You Want to Be a Vet again in the coming year. So if any of you guys are interested about that or want to find out more information, you can go ahead and go to pasadenahumane.org, and we are listed in the events calendar, or you can take a look at the kids portal, and all of our really awesome content will be listed right there. So without further ado, I did want to introduce our very awesome guest today. His name is John, and he has a really, really special career. He does something that I didn't even know was even a job. So I'm very excited to be speaking to him today about this. Hey, John, are you there? Ooh, I know his audio is connecting.
Oh, there I am.
There you are. Sorry. Hey. No, don't worry about it. I was keeping everybody entertained with my shenanigans.
Great. I apologize. We had a big storm, and then links went flying everywhere. So
don't worry. So I've kind of been gearing them up and telling them a little bit about what you do, but I want to hear from you. What is your title, and what exactly do you do?
Yeah, so my title right now is a Senior Population Biologist at AZA Population Management Center in Lincoln Park Zoo. It's kind of a weird center because we're paid for and kind of supported by the association as a whole, and we're based at Lincoln Park, but I kind of serve the membership, so any accredited zoo or aquarium. And my day-to-day job is kind of analyzing data, animal data, which is fun, and helping zoo professionals around the country, sometimes around the world, with population management related questions like, how many animals should we breed over the next 3 years to keep the population where it is or grow it? Or which one should we breed? Like, can we breed these two? And I can look at my data and say, well, they're actually like super close cousins, so maybe not. And then we help pick kind of better matches genetically. And then the third layer of that is kind of welfare and the health records of the animals, their personality, that's all kind of taken into account too. And I do that for birds, mammals, reptiles, sometimes bugs and fish. So anything that kind of comes across my desk. So that's kind of the bulk of what I do.
That is actually really, really cool. That's not a concept I even really thought about in zoos, how like you're right, there's breeding programs in places, so obviously there would be animal relatives scattered around the place. So that is actually something I never really
Exactly.
thought about. Um,
Yeah.
so with that, is it something, did you go into like schooling and were like, this is what I want to be? I want to be an animal matchmaker, or did you kind of like fall into it?
Yeah. I fell into this particular job. So I started out as like a zoo nerd. I went to the zoo all the time. Every time I could, and was wanted to be like a bird scientist. So I wanted to go out into the woods and be David Attenborough and just learn all the things like. And then in my kind of weird career journey, I was a zookeeper for a while, and then I went out into the field and did research on birds mostly, and got some higher degrees in research and taught some, and those are all skills that are required for this job, oddly enough. And so when it was open, I just kind of lucked into it and was a pretty good fit for it. So I made my way to it. Yeah.
Okay. And so you said that you did have like all those moments in like visiting zoos and like that was your jazz. Were there
Yeah.
any opportunities in zoos themselves that you would recommend people look out for?
Oh, absolutely. Any kind of exposure, if you want to get more involved with zoos or any organization you want to work with, related to our industry, animals, welfare, care, you know, ask around and just ask anybody and everybody who will listen if there are opportunities like volunteering opportunities, and then are there internship opportunities, and be that kind of annoying person there that's just maybe not annoying, but be that person that is persistent, consistent, and always eager to kind of learn and take on new things. When I started, I started out as like a, what do you call it, a zoo camper. So my mom sent me off and got rid of me for the week so that I could have something to do. And then I got obsessed. When I was 14, I started volunteering. They had a teen volunteer program, luckily, at my zoo at the time. So those are also very common around.
I'm really sorry to interject. Are you having any problems hearing John? Because his mic's not coming through for me.
At all, or just off and on?
It's just kind of off and on. Is anyone else getting that?
Are you getting that?
I can hear him.
I can hear you, and it looks like most of our people can hear you, which is weird.
Oh, okay. No, don't worry. That's probably just me then.
I'll try to speak a little bit slower, and then hopefully the recording will be okay too. Sorry. So yeah, I started off as a volunteer for all through high school. I went as often as I could, and then was able to kind of get a job that way in zookeeping. So because I was very fortunate. That is kind of a privileged access that I had to be able to volunteer. But more and more now, paid internships are being made available for teens and also young college students. So that's something that we see as we need to provide more for access. My zoo in particular has some new programs that we're developing for like research apprenticeship programs. So I'm actually developing a new program for us to host 2 teens next summer in my center. So we're going to develop a program for them. And we're going to hopefully and it's a paid position as well. So they get some stipend for the summer. But
that's absolutely amazing. So you said you're in the middle of the creation of that.
Yeah.
How would someone go about applying for that if it were to come to fruition?
You go to different zoo websites and poke around for those programs. For us, it would be on our website, on our learning website, or in our learning department. And they will post the requirements. They do interviews, so you actually have to interview as a teen, which is kind of exciting.
Yeah.
And something I never had to do as a teen.
That is very exciting.
Yeah. So I would say look around, and usually they'll post them on their websites. Schools will often sometimes advertise them if the learning departments at your zoos have relationships with different schools. So there's a lot of different ways that those can be advertised and people can get involved.
Very cool. Sorry, you guys might hear my dog in the background. She's very excited to hear a different voice in the house today.
I thought it was in the backyard.
Alrighty. So with that, what were some early influencers or mentors that kind of helped you guide you onto your path?
Oh, that's a great question. So for me, it was people who I had my first kind of job with, volunteer job. I count as a job because I worked really hard. But having a teenager with you, if you're an adult, having a teenager with you can sometimes be a lot of energy on your day-to-day doing your normal work. And some really great people that were so nice and like kind of tolerated me because I'm energetic 15, 16-year-old going through puberty but I was super eager to learn. So I had some really great mentors that taught me kind of how to be a good professional in the workplace, but also taught me how to be a hard worker, be kind of a rounded and professional. So I took a lot of lessons from some early people. The woman who actually gave me my first zookeeper job, I've known her since I was 14, and she's still a reference for me today. She's still a close colleague of mine today. So definitely keep an eye out for like those early influences. I've had a couple of those from my first zoo that I still am very close with.
Very cool. And what sort of resources would you say really like helped you kind of cement where you are today?
Well, I went through community college, so that was a big help for me because I had to kind of pay my way through school. I worked a lot of different jobs, so I was also trying to do school and zoo stuff.
Okay.
But, having that resource and being able to have like a very flexible school schedule was really helpful for me. And there were some like study help programs. And as I got into the end of my school, like I had a lot of connections that I made while being in, what do you call it? Words are hard. In my community college. And that connected me to people when I went to finish my bachelor's degree. That led to some great internships and research experiences because, all I had done before was zookeeping. And I was like, well, what is this research thing? Can I travel with that? What else is out there,
Yeah.
That's one thing that I definitely thought when I was, a young zookeeper. The only things that I thought you could do with animals was as a vet or a zookeeper. And then when I got into college, into my bachelor's university, University of Florida, I started doing all this other research stuff. And I was like, there's genetics people, there's like ecology, there's all different things. And I started to try different things. So I think the resources at your university, just for volunteering on projects or internships, having like so much variety there was such a great resource for me to kind of figure out what I wanted to do.
Yeah, and I feel like that's also a really great point to make to not even just younger people, but anybody who's just looking at figuring out like what they want to do. Try everything. I can definitely say I'm in a career path that has nothing to do with my current degree. I went to school for cultural anthropology and I'm working in outreach. So definitely just try everything that interests you.
Yeah, absolutely.
But along that note, was there ever a point in your time that you had something else that you wanted to do or something else that you were interested in?
I will say I've been kind of a stubborn person in terms of my professional pursuits. It's always been animal something. I tried to be an insurance salesman once for about 6 months. Didn't do good. Didn't do well. But I will say when I was young and in high school, thought I was a really big smarty pants. And I was like, I'm going to have a PhD by the time I'm 30. And I got my master's by the time I was 25. And so I was trying to then get PhD programs. Like I actually got accepted to one in Australia. And I was super stoked about it. But it was filling all the boxes of this plan I had in my head when I was a teenager. But I was burnt out. I was tired of school. I wanted like a job where I had money and I wasn't living out of a suitcase and I could make friends. So I kind of gave up that dream, or rather, I guess I just changed the dream. And that was a kind of a hard struggle for me because, I had always been this person that was like, I'm gonna have a PhD and I'm gonna be this professor person, studies birds. And I had to kind of change. I didn't have to change, but I wanted to change. I was tired and I wanted something different. So I looked around and tried to figure out a new dream, and that kind of led me eventually to this job.
And that's really honestly amazing. And I feel like mostly that just as a people, we need to normalize burnout because it's a very real part of our lives. And I feel like once we start acknowledging it and dealing with it, we can definitely find these opportunities where we are a lot more fulfilled. And that's at any life age.
Any life age. And one thing that I also tell people all the time in these types of talks, especially young people, is for me, you know, I got stuck in that one mode of this is how I have to be, this is what I have to do. A lot of times, if you feel like you're going to give that up, or you have to give that up for whatever circumstance, you might inwardly feel like a failure. Sorry, there's traffic noise outside. I don't know what you can hear. You might inwardly feel like a failure, and I certainly felt that way and beat myself up. But life is long, and there are other dreams to be had. And I just want people to, when they're going into these things, it's okay to have those dreams and go for them. But it's also okay to change your mind. You know, and I think you can still be just as happy and fulfilled.
Oh, hands down. I went into, college and I was like, I'm going to be in math because that's a great career. It's solid. I took my first intro to logic class, and that was the end of that dream. I was like,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So sorry.
No, you're fine.
My dog is having a
thirsty.
day.
I mean, I get it.
So that's actually really great that you're definitely kind of pushing that out. Like, hey, just whatever you get started on doesn't mean that that's what we have to follow through all the way on. Like, it's okay to make dips and turns. So if people were trying to find out more information about what you do, how to go down your career path, are there any books or articles that you'd recommend that they read?
There's definitely some good books out there for my field. So I would call my field small population biology or population biology. The books are quite technical. Certainly if you want to go full on and read a lot of mathy books about animal populations, I've got some things for you. I think reading any kind of animal book you can think of that piques your interest, go for it. And remind me the rest of your question again. It was books and other...
Or articles, any...
Well, I would say a great way to start, if you're interested in what I do specifically, or even zoo scientists, because there's actually a lot of different types of zoo scientists in my community. So we have a zoo nutritionist on grounds. We have a whole welfare science team of like 3 or 4 people, and they manage volunteers in the zoo who actually collect welfare data for us.
Okay.
Then we have like a horticulturist team who do a lot of scientific research on grounds. And I would say go to different zoos that have a scientific center, look at the scientists, and a lot of them will have publications underneath their bios. See what kind of stuff they're studying. If it sounds cool, read a little bit, read the abstract. Or if they've got a book, I think that's a great way to go. So for Lincoln Park, we have the same thing for all of our scientists. You can look up my name and you can see publications I've done, but you can also look at my center and read about it. And there are articles about different things for our center there. So I think that would be a great resource if you're interested in zoo science-y kind of things.
Very cool. So I was just in my mind going back to when you told us about like all the data that you have to look at whenever you're making these matches between animals. What have been some of your most interesting or some of the coolest matches to you that you've made?
Well, it's always fun. So, I work with animals all over the country, so not just at Lincoln Park Zoo. Mm-hmm. It's fun whenever I get to help out some animals that are local for the zoo. So a few years ago, we had these monkeys, they're DeBraz's monkeys, and we had a stable family group. And then the offspring were sent to another facility because it was their time for dispersal. They were getting kind of old and trying to beat up dad. Okay. And the father actually passed away of old age. He was well past his median life expectancy, but the then was alone for a little bit. So the managers at the zoo can do. They were like, hey, we know you work with this population. Can you help us find a male that would be suitable? But we also would like to breed some more. She's, our female, she's still very young. We want her to have that opportunity. So it was really nice to be able to sit down with our people at the zoo. And then the person who manages that population was actually at a zoo, I want to say in New Jersey. I think New Jersey. Because there are volunteers around the country at different zoos who manage specific populations. So this was a monkey expert in New Jersey who likes to brazos, and she has all the data. And we found this one gentleman who needed a home. He was a younger male in a troop of a family, and he was kind of getting pushed out a lot. So he needed a place to go, and we matched him up. They weren't related. And they've had 2 offspring now. So it's nice to go to the zoo and see babies that I'm like, oh, I helped do that.
They're kind of my babies. Okay.
Yeah. Am I Grandpa John? I don't know.
You are. You need a Christmas card every year.
Right. So that was a really fun one for me. Yeah.
That is cool. And honestly, I feel like I just be visiting zoos being like, this is because of me. That's because of me.
I do. Because I know a lot about zoo animal happening. So when I go to a zoo, I'm just like, oh, is this that one that was doing that thing? All right, you need I need babies from you. So it's kind of fun to be in the know, I guess, when you're going to different zoos. But
okay. And then kind of along that route, so how do you guys keep track of who's related to who? Is there like a family tree that you guys go down?
Yes, perfect analogy. So if you know anything about horses and like the pedigree of horses, they keep very, very detailed records, and they keep it in a database or a, sometimes paper record called a stud book. And that is essentially where every individual that's living has a record of who their father was, or the scientific term would be sire, who their dad is, and then who those parents, who their parents were, and who their parents, and it goes all the way back however many generations or years, So we have the same thing. And these databases we have are called stud books. They're all, now they're in a cloud-based software, so they're all online and I can access them. And people can update them, and they have all of this information on all of the, history of a particular species. And then we can put that in different software that I help to develop and maintain, but also use every day. And that software is then able to spit out and tell me who's related to whom, how much gene diversity do we have. And based on those numbers, we can set goals of saying we want this population to be healthy and diverse for 100 years or 50 years. What management things do we need to recommend to maintain the gene diversity or increase the gene diversity or what have you? And so that's kind of how we use those family trees or those stud books and then turn it into kind of management and action.
Okay. That's actually really, really cool. So you just guys have these stack of books and you're like, oh, these are who goes with these and these are who goes with these. I am totally with that. And I feel like people need something very similar.
Yeah.
So with that, what is a piece of advice you'd give our viewers here who were just trying to find a direction?
I would say similar to what I've said before, try a lot of different things, be open and curious, look things up. There's a lot more access than I had kind of growing up. I mean, I still have the computers and the internet. I'm not that old, but USBs were invented when I went to college, so that's a whole new thing. I would say try internships, try volunteer if you can, try programs that sound interesting, even if you're not completely sold on it, and just see what happens. I almost became a plant major because I had really great plant teachers once. You never know.
There you go. And at one point you were going to be in the forest and studying birds. So
exactly. And now I work mostly with people who work with animals, which I love. So
alrighty. So we're kind of getting a little close to the end of our session. If any of you guys have questions you want to ask John directly, go ahead, drop those in the chat box. We do have a couple more that we're going to get through, and then we'll go ahead and start asking your questions, guys. So on our last of our interview questions, it says, what has been the most challenging part of your work or what you've gone through to get to this point?
Most challenging thing. So I think for me, it's a challenge sometimes to just make mistakes, grow from that. And it's hard to kind of sit with mistakes and turn that into learning and growth. I don't know how to say that in a way that's helpful for younger people. I think another big challenge I had too before I got this position was applying to a lot of things, and and it's hard to apply to 20, 30 jobs a month and get like no responses and not really know what you're doing or if you're doing something wrong. So I didn't reach out for help very much either. So I think that's something that I recommend people do. There are resources out there for resume help or cover letter writing, and really thinking about you as work, as labor, are trying to market yourself. You're really trying to sell yourself, and a lot of people don't think of it that way, and I certainly didn't for many years. And if you start thinking that way and talking that way to people you're trying to pitch you as an employee, like it makes you stand out. So that's one of the biggest challenges I had, I think, before getting into this position. And then of course another one is I always try and challenge myself when it comes to animals, because you're working with animals' lives and their welfare and their day-to-day, and I always try and double check myself and make sure I'm doing the best I can. Everybody's getting the best welfare they can, and so there are always challenges sometimes, or things that come up that are hard, and sometimes it's challenging to make the best decisions, but I think always kind of reapproaching those at some point and challenging yourself with, like, is this the right course? Is it not? Should we do this? Should we not?
Just constantly self-evaluating.
Yeah, that's hard. It was a hard thing to learn, that I needed to self-evaluate a lot more. And I think people need to do that a lot earlier on. I think that's really helpful.
Most definitely. Alrighty. So the last question on our docket for today is, actually really, really cool. So at any point, were you ever really excited about working with a specific animal and haven't had the chance to, or did you finally work with your dream animal?
Goodness, there are so many. I've worked with several of my dream birds, I will say.
Okay.
So my favorite birds are turacos and cassowaries, and I've worked with them as zookeepers, but I've never got to work with them really in the wild, which I would love to do. So maybe on a bucket list one day, that would be amazing. So I'd love it. So if you don't know what those are, Google them. They're great. Cassowaries are basically like living velociraptors.
They are. So it's funny that you kind of bring that up. I am a huge dinosaur nerd. That is kind of like what gets me going, but birds themselves freak me out. So it's a very weird thing. Alrighty, so that is actually all the time that we do have for today. I want to thank you so much, John, for taking time out of your schedule to be here with us today.
Of course. I'm sorry I was late.
Don't worry, we cannot control the weather, so it's totally fine.
Right.
Alrighty, guys. So also thank you to our audience members for participating in today's Careers in Animal Welfare. As I mentioned earlier, this is going to be an ongoing series. So if you are interested in any of our other segments, they will be featuring a beekeeper. We are talking to a forest ranger, and we will also be talking to a senior shelter groomer. So stay tuned for those, and you can check out any of our other in-person events on PasadenaHumane.org. Thank you so much, guys. Have a great day.